You're listening to the Business Communicators, presented by IABC Houston.
We wanted to dive into one of the big stories here locally, specifically in Texas, over the past week and a half, and the Richards Group. They are an ad agency that is based in North Texas, in Dallas. Some might say South Oklahoma, depending on how you draw the state lines, whether you're from Houston or not. But they were founded 43 years ago. They're the largest independent agency in America. And according to the Dallas Business Journal, the Richards Group has 688 employees, and their billings last year were $210 million. It's a pretty large agency, and then controversy happened. Thomas, tell us what happened.
Oh, well, so Stan Richards founded the Richards Group in the late 70s, mid 70s. A really impressive client list all the way through. Has been credited for many things that we've heard, from the Eat More Chicken at Chick-fil-A to HEB being a client of theirs. But they're one of the clients of Motel 6 will leave the lights on as their work. He was doing an ad review and made a comment that was kind of off color, saying that it's too one way and it's going to offend the other side of it. Definitely, no way you can slice it, taking it out of context or not. It was something that should not have been said, especially on a Zoom call.
What did he say, Thomas? You can go ahead and say it. It's really if it's in Texas Monthly that he said it, go ahead and say it.
He said that this ad is too black, and that it's going to offend their white supremacist clients. And it's one of those things that in today's world, like I said, is you can't take that one out of context, no matter what. And so it's always hesitant in what we do is people taking things out of context. This one is not.
And not even in this world, like, period. Like, you shouldn't. I mean, there's a line between what's right and what's wrong. There's always gray area. Things can be taken out of context, but you can't say stuff like that. I mean, it's completely utter BS. And Hattie, I want to get to you in just a second, but just for context, the Richards Group, they had Motel 6 pull out. They had HEB pull out. Dr. Pepper pulled out. So many different clients of theirs pulled out. I think the number is 40% of billings have pulled out. So it's just a massive, massive number. There's tons of fallout. People's jobs are going to be at stake that had nothing to do with this. I mean, I can't even comprehend this, Hattie.
Well, with, as you guys have been saying, with everything that's been going on, but what is really interesting to me is that when he spoke to Texas Monthly, and he was, I don't even say he defended himself, because he didn't apologize because he didn't think he said anything wrong. And that's pretty much, given the gentleman's age, given, the era he comes from and things such as that, in his mind, he didn't say anything wrong. It was part of his everyday vernacular, his everyday conversation. And what is interesting to me is that everything that's swirling around him, all the instances and situations that are involving, social injustice and racism, that he was clearly, I don't want to say in denial, he ignored it because he didn't think, hey, this is something that is part of my everyday armor. I didn't say anything wrong. Why can't I say this? And nobody ever told, and the understanding is he said it before and no one's ever addressed it with him. So there are others too who are equally responsible, who should probably be brought to task in terms of, oh, now you want to snitch on him? So
yeah.
So where do you go from there now?
I do think it's interesting because, he founded the company in the 70s.
Absolutely.
I don't want to say this language was okay in the 70s because it certainly was not, but actions have consequences. They might not have had consequences 43 years ago when he started the company. And so I think when you're privately owned, your culture can continue to build and build based on behavior. And it's very hard to change when you continue to do that. I used to work in sports, and one of the things that we always told our student athletes was think, then tweet. And we've seen this now with, cancel culture, whether that's right or whether that's wrong, is that if you said something 10 years ago, it can come back to haunt you. Now you can rebuild your image. We had Mandy Kane on the podcast in season 1. We had her at an IABC Houston luncheon in August of 2019. You can recover from mistakes. We saw Kobe Bryant do it. We've seen Tiger Woods do it. They were able to rebuild their image, but it takes time. But when you have a toxic culture like this, I don't know, it makes me a little concerned. And Thomas, I want to get to you on this real quick, but Glenn Daddy or Glenn Dady, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. If you do know how to pronounce his name, send us a message and let us know. But he's the principal and creative director for the Richards Group. He spent 40 years with them, so he's been around basically since day one. He issued a statement. You can actually go to their website and read this, but it says, in the over 4 decades I've had the privilege of working at the Richards Group, the agency has never been party to nor tolerated racism in any form. We exist to endear brands to all people. Our brand has been tarnished. Like all businesses and organizations, we have a lot of work to do to further societal change. As a person now responsible for all the operations of the Richards Group moving forward, I commit to doing everything in my power to stay focused on that goal. He further said that we understand and regret the pain and concerns of all of those who were deeply troubled by the words our founder spoke. He can't take them back. We can only ask for forgiveness and promise to learn and be better. We ask our many friends for understanding and prayers as we move forward. Thomas, do you buy this as an apology? I mean, I'm not sure that I do.
It's funny because when we talk about the people rebuilding themselves, they were the brand. Whereas the Richards Group is a larger organization, and it just happens to bear the name of the founder. That kind of goes from there. And so it's one of those things. Is this an apology? Doesn't really feel like it. It feels like a canned PR response. But to rebuild themselves, are they going to have to change the name of the company or something along those lines? While the founder was the head person. And again, when I heard the news break, what went through my head first was, he's still working. I hope to have that much energy when I'm that age. But yeah, I was like, he's still working. And then I was like, oh, because like I said, I've watched their work on the outside for years. Hattie?
Yeah.
Well, can I just say this? Yeah, the question is, how do you come back from this? As you said, Thomas, their name is the brand. More than anything, people are putting out these canned statements when they make these big mistakes. But I do believe actions speak louder than words.
Right.
Whether you change your name or whether you change your complete strategy and approach, it's what you do next that is going to, say who you are. And you've got to be genuine about it.
Absolutely.
And you've got to be authentic, and you've got to mean what you say, and not just throw a Band-Aid out there because they're saying something now because they're bleeding. They lost clients, they lost money, probably millions of dollars that they may not ever get back.
Yeah.
For a while, and it's gonna take a big move for them to turn it around.
And I think it's a little bit hard too, because, they're privately owned, and it's tough to get clients back. I mean, they're still going to have clients, right? They're probably not going to be able to charge the same rates. They're going to have to lay off people. They just built a brand new building, I think within the last 5 years in the West Village of Dallas, like a very high end area, a beautiful like architecture. Are they going to have to sell that? There's going to be so many losses, and it's like, can you recover from it? And the thing that kind of bothers me most is, we've alluded to this, is that I'm not sure that this is an isolated incident. I mean, I think this is the first time they've been caught, red-handed, and actions do have consequences. And we even look back to like questionable ad campaigns that they've had in the past. They ran, I believe it was like 5 or 6 years ago, they were running a women's health campaign, and they stereotyped, I think they were using like hands or something like that. And they stereotyped, races on feminine products. And it was just like a no-no. Nobody talked about it. They didn't lose clients or anything like that. But this is resurfaced, according to Texas Monthly. So it's like, what else, is out there? And again, the people that I feel for most are the ones that have been impacted by these words. Like, words do have consequences. They do hurt people. And they're financially going to hurt people. Stan Richards, financially, he'll be fine. Michael Dady, he'll be fine. He's been there for 40 years. Pockets are probably lined. That's okay. The people who it's going to hurt are the ones that have been navigating this pandemic right now in a terrible job market. People still need clients. They still need advertising. Now they're going to be out of a job because they've lost 40% of billings.
I was living in Austin and working in Austin with GSD&M, and when they would lose a major client, you would see a department pretty much get let go the next day or the next week, whenever the financial people finally caught on to it. So yeah, I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, okay, if they have 700 people and they lost half their billings, which probably isn't even close to being accurate, simple math says half the people aren't going to be working there this time next month.
Well, this is something I was thinking about. If the people or the folks behind the scenes who are actually producing this particular ad, and if it is actually a powerful ad, and the people behind the scenes are actually very talented folks, I'm going to hope and pray that they get picked up quickly, because they're going to have work, because someone is going to say, hey, I see you. I saw what you did, and it's a very powerful message. I think that, and that's my hope. While the other parts of it, like you say, Stan Richards is going to be fine financially, and so is Mr. Dady, or whatever his name is. But the other folks, because it also makes me wonder who was working there for him to feel, even comfortable enough to say something like that, which means that the right people may have been at the table, because they understood the demographics, they understood who the customer was, they understood who they were marketing to. So those are some other mechanics that I think about as to, if that is the case, I think they will find work. And maybe this is not the place for them anyway.
It's funny you mentioned that, because what's going through my mind as we're talking about how to rebuild their brand, how much pro bono work do they have to do to remotely gain any traction? We all three of us work in communications, and it's a really, really bad day when the ad agency or your PR firm or your CMO winds up as the news story and not the news itself. And so if they do all this pro bono work, who's going to know unless they're taking out more ads to say, hey, look at us, what we're doing for the pro bono? And so these workers, while I'm sure that they're great, because if they understand their target audience, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to measure it, are going to land somewhere, but it's going to take time for them to, dust that portfolio off, dust that resume off, and all the other fun stuff that they have to do.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on that. But at the end of the day, I think something good is going to come out of all of this. It always does. And I think what's really interesting for me, people are seeing people as they truly are, with new eyes, or the same eyes with a fresh coat of mascara or whatever. But this is not new. This happens every single day. And it affects people who look like me and people who don't look like me. So it's a new day, people. So we're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Think, then tweet. Don't do anything stupid. I mean, it's not that hard, people. I do think that it's going to be fascinating to follow, the case studies that come out of this, what happens in 5 years, 10 years, are they still around? How many people are impacted by layoffs? So I will say this, if you have been impacted by this, if you're listening to this podcast, we'd encourage you to reach out to IBC Dallas, see where, they can help you in finding a role moving forward, whether it's in advertising, marketing. There's a lot of talented people there. I mean, we look at the work that they've done, and it's been very, very good. I mean, it's an iconic company, but things happen, and it's just insane to me how it can flip just like that.
Yes.
So any parting takes on the Richards Group?
Just speaking of how quickly it flips, Stan Richards was introduced into the Advertising Hall of Fame in 2017, 3 years ago, just as the work they do. And so to your point that it can flip on a moment. Did I make up a word there, introduced to?
It's all right. I mean, the Business Communicators podcast. I mean, instead of going to Urban Dictionary, we could just come to you and kind of get those words. How does that work?
I don't know how I like being connected to Urban Dictionary, especially on this topic that we're talking about right now.
As long as you're connected to any dictionary, Thomas, that's okay.
Oh, thank you.
Hattie, any parting thoughts on that?
At the end of the day, this is a teachable moment. And it's a learning moment for not just the Richards Group and their clients and Stan Richards, who probably didn't learn anything from it in the first place. But it's interesting, and it's really funny how you say something, the right person hears it, and your lifestyle is gone. Blip. So you watch your mouth.
Yeah, that trip that you planned, gone. That retirement, you're going to have to rethink that. You're going to have to rethink investments, all of that. And unfortunately, this isn't something that you can prepare for, right? I mean, this is something that's happening really quickly. So very, very tough situation up in Dallas with the Richards Group. But one thing that I do want to encourage everyone that is listening right now, if you are in Houston and you're actually looking for a job right now, we have the IABC Houston Career Center. It's free. You can send us your resume. You can send us any jobs that you have that you want us to post. There's no cost associated to it. If you want to reach us on that, you can actually just text us. Text jobs to 713-360-0133. We'll send you updates as we get them. And again, it's free. It's the IBC Houston Career Center page. You can visit it by going to ibchouston.com/career center.
You've been listening to the Business Communicators. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @BizCommunicator, and find out more about our chapter at iabchouston.com. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review.